Let's start, though, with some breaking news concerning Manchester United and their search for a central midfielder. Let's come to you first, Mark. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, when you talk about Manchester United and transfers, it's always significant. There's always a lot of interest because it's one of the biggest clubs on the planet, and therefore the fans are desperate to know what they're going to do in January. We know that Ruben Amorim has been speaking today about potential incomings, and we've got a little bit of breaking news here on Sky Sports News with regards to what they're looking to do, not necessarily in January. However, they have explored the possibility of signing players in the winter window. They're also looking ahead to the summer as well, but they have explored conditions of a potential deal for a central midfielder, the Brighton man, Carlos Baleba. We know that they have an interest in the player. They have been linked with him in the past, and they have explored conditions of a deal in this window. Brighton's stance is, as it always is, Carlos Baleba is not for sale. He's someone that we rate very highly, and therefore we are not interested in selling him, particularly during January. He has a contract until 2028 with a year's option on Brighton Hove Albion's side, so he's got a long-term contract, so we know that any potential deal would be significant. Brighton don't want to lose what they deem a key player at 21 years old. We know what happened to the last central midfielder they had that was very highly rated. Moises Caicedo went for what was then a Premier League record, £115 million. Carlos Baleba very much in the same remit as far as they're concerned. They don't want to lose him. They see a huge future for him down on the south coast. But the fact that Manchester United are in the market potentially to sign a player in January is hugely significant, and he's not the only name on their list as well.
Who else is?
Well, United's priority is signing at least one, possibly two central midfielders in 2026, whether that be January or more likely in the summer. The focus is on signing them in the summer because it's quite a difficult window to get those long-term targets. And we understand the list of targets includes Elliot Anderson, Adam Wharton and Wolves' João Gomez. We know Casemiro could depart this summer. There is an option that Manchester United have to trigger an option in his contract to extend his time at Old Trafford, but those terms aren't favourable for Manchester United right now. Kobbie Mainoo's future remains unclear. Manuel Ugarte has not delivered so far in a Manchester United shirt, so you can understand why they're looking at one, if not two, central midfielders this month, more likely in the summer. But if they can bring in a player like Carlos Baleba in January, it could make such a big difference in terms of what they're able to achieve this season. There's been some mixed results for United, mixed performances over the course of the last few weeks, but they are well placed to deliver European football once more. So whether or not they can get a player in January to help support that and bring life into a season which has faltered at times, we wait to see. Carlos Baleba would be a player who could make a difference for United.
You mentioned a couple of the sort of big names there. People know about Adam Wharton, people know about Elliot Anderson, people know about Baleba. A couple of names I just want to put on your radar as well and put on the radar of Manchester United fans. Lille's Ayoub Bouadi is another player that Manchester United are in. Young player, he's only 18 years old, one for the future. Another player that is of interest to Manchester United, another player that they're currently tracking, Christoph Mouzakitis as well. He's at Olympiacos, 19 years old, another youngster, another one for the future. We know that every single Premier League club wants to sign these young players that are teenagers that they can mould and develop into superstars. And it seems to be that everyone just wants players under the age of 22. But Manchester United, whilst they're focusing on the players that James has mentioned with experience, that are Premier League ready, they've also got their eye on a couple of youngsters in Europe that are also doing the business at the moment. So really fascinating stuff to come out of Manchester United. What feels like a strategy, a plan. They've got targets. They've got long-term targets. For the first time in a while, it feels like Manchester United are doing what Manchester United fans want them to do, and that is go and target the right positions with the right type of players and, of course, players for the future as well. So really fascinating stuff to come out.
You would think that also that reflects that they will be aware that some of the clubs who own the players you've just mentioned, it will be difficult. You just touched on Carlos Baleba, but Nottingham Forest, for example, who are fighting to stay up, will not want one of their best players to leave the club in January for any fee, you would suggest.
No, absolutely not. None of these players will be easy to get, and particularly when you're Manchester United and the phone starts ringing, they think, well, we'll charge you more because you're one of the biggest clubs commercially in the world and you've got the money to do it. One of the key things for Manchester United is that they get into some form of European football. It really needs to be Champions League football because the extra 70 to 80 million pounds that competition brings enables them to go to the next level. A, they can say to the players, we're playing Champions League football, which all young players want to do. And B, the finances that will add to their accounts give them the opportunity to go and spend that little bit more money because it increases their turnover, which means that they actually can play at the big boys table, which has sometimes historically recently been more difficult because they haven't been able to give Champions League football or pay the wages that perhaps other clubs can do because they have to be a little bit more conscious of PSR. They still are a huge juggernaut when it comes to finances and they still generate huge sums of money, but they've had to be more careful and conscious of it than perhaps they have done in the recent history.
So what might be possible for Manchester United in January? Ruben Amorim was asked about recruitment in his news conference today.
The transfer window is not going to change. We have no conversation in this moment to have any change in the squad. There's a process. There's an idea that is going to continue. We are near the places of Champions League, but we are near also for like 8 teams behind us. So let's focus on the next game, just that, and our focus is to win the next game.
So Ruben Amorim is focusing on the next game, James. Behind the scenes, they're clearly focusing on central midfield. Are there other positions as well United would like to strengthen?
Yeah, they're looking at forward options. Antoine Semenyo was a market opportunity and represents a market opportunity in January with that release clause. United were in the market for him. They wanted to sign him, but he looks destined to join Manchester City. They could offer a better package, and right now they're a club who are very close to winning trophies, which is somewhere United aren't at right now, but somewhere that United want to be very soon. They're also monitoring the situation around players like Jean-Philippe Mateta at Crystal Palace, who got back to scoring ways yesterday, not being in the best of form for Crystal Palace right now. He's only got 18 months left on his contract, and it doesn't look like there's a real likelihood of him signing a new deal. So potentially in the summer, that represents a window where Jean-Philippe Mateta could move. I think it's unlikely Palace will sell him in the situation they're at and the competition they're in right now at the moment. The other player is Jan Diomande from RB Leipzig, a winger, 19-year-old, one for the future. They're also looking at centre-backs because, yes, they've got plenty right now, but Harry Maguire is out of contract in the summer. And Jeremy Jacquet, Crystal Palace were in for him in the summer. They end up signing JD Convo, but Jacquet from Rennes is a player they're looking at as well. So very much players they're looking at for now, but also those for the future as well as they try to get United back to where they think the club should be.
He said something similar, Mark, towards the end of last season about not having too much room for manoeuvre in the market. One of the keys probably for Manchester United was getting players out as well. Anthony going, Jadon Sancho going out on loan, Marcus Rashford going out on loan. Which players do you think are dispensable this month, and would Joshua Zirkzee be in that conversation?
Yeah, he's absolutely a player that potentially could be leaving Manchester United. We've heard from Ruben Amorim there, and he was quite clear really in terms of no one has asked to leave, and he's not expecting anyone to ask to leave. However, Joshua Zirkzee taken off at half-time against Wolves after scoring, and we know that there is interest from Roma. Does it feel like his days are coming to an end at Old Trafford? Yes. There's normally noise because there's an opportunity. Clubs don't generally go in for clubs or make it known that they're interested in players if they haven't been given some kind of assurance or guidance or a little bit of information from the representatives of the player. Yeah, he'd be open to coming. He's not particularly happy at the club, or he's not getting the game time he wants at the club. So let's get some noise out there. You make the approach and we'll see if we can get a deal done. Joshua Zirkzee, certainly one player that's on the radar of Roma at the moment, and you'd imagine there may be an opportunity for him to move on. Certainly, if not permanently, then at least on loan between now and the end of the window.
We've talked about central midfield and the options that Manchester United have looked at or have on a short list. Some Manchester United fans will say, we have quite a good one at the club. He's played for England at the last major tournament. Why aren't you using him more? Kobbie Mainoo.
Well, Kobbie Mainoo, he's currently out injured. He's missed the last couple of games, but when he was fit, he wasn't given opportunities. He's yet to start a match in the Premier League so far this season. It's our understanding, despite the fact there continues to be talk around Kobbie Mainoo, that United would only consider selling him if they receive an exceptional offer. And in terms of any outgoings in this January window, there would have to be, if they were to be loaned, with an obligation to buy, whereby United would receive a fee for the player. They're not going to be doing any clubs any favours, especially right now. They're potentially missing up to 8 first-team players for that game against Leeds this weekend. And we understand that Kobbie Mainoo, despite the fact it doesn't feel that way, is a key part of Manchester United's long-term future. And Ruben Amorim feels he's part of the long-term future as well. But what confuses us sometimes is the fact that Ruben Amorim doesn't seem to find a place for him in the starting 11 when he's fit. He says that Bruno Fernandes is the first choice in that position, and Kobbie Mainoo can only play in that position. Bruno Fernandes, when he's fit, doesn't miss a single minute. He's rarely taken off in games either. So Kobbie Mainoo, it's a weird situation whereby we're being told he's a key part of United's future, but when he's fit, we're not seeing him feature, and that is the disappointing thing for Manchester United fans. That's why he gets such a brilliant reaction when he comes onto the pitch. This is the player who scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final just over 18 months ago against Manchester City, but now it doesn't feel like there's a real route into that first team for him, especially when they want to sign 2 more midfielders.
A question then for either of you, that can both of those things not be true, that he can be seen as a part of the future, but for the moment Bruno Fernandes is the preferred option, but Bruno Fernandes is nearly 31, I think. So, particularly in a central midfield position, 2 or 3 more years at the top before Kobbie Mainoo does become the future of Manchester United.
I think with Kobbie Mainoo, because he's played for England and he's played at Euros for England, his career has accelerated at a rate that nobody really predicted, and he became a regular first-team player at Manchester United. I think we see the same with Miles Lewis-Skelly at Arsenal as well. They've accelerated to such a level where I feel like they should be getting first-team opportunities because their performances have merited them. But when you're such a young player, there are times in your career where progression isn't always upwards. And you're right, he's just 20 years of age, so perhaps some patience is required, because in 2 or 3 years' time he could become the most important player at Manchester United. But clearly he wants to be playing first-team football. He's been given first-team football in the past, so it's difficult for him to understand why he's not featuring, and it's difficult for a player that age not to be playing football either. So I understand where you're coming from. It feels like he could be a player for the long-term future, and we may not see him as much now, but clearly he's impatient. He wants to get on with his career. He wants to get back into that England side, which feels a long way away right now.
Happy New Year. In terms of the squad, are there going to be any players back and any other issues as well?
We are going, no issues, no different issues. We are going to see tomorrow. We have more and more training. I don't think so that anyone is going to recover, but we'll see.
Obviously, players like Harry and Bruno would be a huge boost for a place like Ellen Road. I'm guessing you've not experienced it before in any way, and what are you expecting from?
No, I heard that is a big derby, a great environment, big rivalry. But every game in Premier League is so tough for us. So it's one more game. I know that it means a lot to the fans, but we need to go there and try to win.
Ruben, I just wonder, bigger picture-wise, when you look at where the club were at post-Europa League final, 6 months on to be 6th, 3 points off the top 4 place. In the bigger picture, are you happy with the progress the team have made as you start 2026?
I think we are playing better. When we have the full squad, we are clearly attacking better. We are not being good enough in the details. We should have more points in the moment, but of course we want always more, and we should have more points in the table.
Daniel, Ruben, Daniel Farke's Leeds now are a very different team than they were maybe 2 or 3 months ago. How difficult is this game going to be?
They have a lot of pace, and sometimes we struggle with pace. They are confident, but we prove that we can win any game in any situation, in every context. So we will try to do that again. We know that they changed the system. They have different players in front. They can. The last game they rotate the 2 players that usually are the starters. So they have good players, good manager. Great environment. Is going to be a tough game.
Ruben, in terms of the rivalry, you obviously played for Benfica, you managed Sporting. Can you kind of equate that rivalry to what you'll experience this afternoon?
It's different. I never experienced this one. In Portugal, it's a big rivalry. Here is the same. different environment, different culture. But the noise is going to be big. We just have to perform, but it's hard to compare different cultures, different derbies, different history. Let's just focus on the game is 11 guys against our 11 in the beginning, and we'll try to win.
Is it easy to do that? Because the noise and the intensity and the crowd will be really, really against your team right at the start of the game.
When you play for Manchester United, you need to be ready for everything, and you guys have the best league in the world. That every game now, and you see, every week is a lot of draws. You never control, you never understand what is going to happen in the end of that week. So it's going to be tough, but it's always tough nowadays in Premier League.
Hi, Ruben. We've seen Liverpool and Chelsea drop points as well this week, and it feels like your side at the halfway stage well within a chance of reaching the Champions League. Does the fact you've put yourself in such a promising position change what you're thinking this month in terms of the transfer window? Is it worth kind of pushing the envelope a little bit further to make sure you get top 4, top 5?
The transfer window is not going to change. We have no conversation in this moment to have any change in the squad. There's a process. There's an idea that is going to continue. We are near the places of Champions League, but we are near also for like 8 teams behind us. So let's focus on the next game. Just that, and our focus is to win the next game.
Chris and then Samuel.
Hi Ruben. You played some very young players in the last few games, Fletcher, Lacey and Ansato. Given the hostile nature of the environment on Sunday, will that impact your selection at all?
No, of course we look to everything, but they need to be prepared. You can see the squad. It's impossible. We cannot stretch the players that we don't have in the moment. But of course, I will try to put a team that is ready to cope with that, and then I will try to read the game and try to understand what I should do to help them to win the game.
But you're confident if needed, those kids can handle that kind of atmosphere?
They have to. It's a game in the hostile environment, but they need to be ready and they need to experience that. But it's going to be hard for any player, even the guys with a lot of experience. But again, we already experienced that. Bilbao last year was amazing, the sound. So it's good. I know that feeling is completely different, but they need to be ready.
Just on Tyrone's question. Have any players come and knocked on your door and asked if they could leave this month? I mean, Joshua Zirkzee is someone
none of you.
Would you expect any of them to?
No, I don't expect them to come to me to ask anything.
Well, at Manchester United, may they have to wait until the summer until they spend big, or could they dip their toes into the market? We've got the latest on 2 players that they're keeping an eye on. Well, will Manchester United be busy this month as well? They are one of the clubs monitoring, Jan Diomande, who's a super young talent playing for RB Leipzig. They've also got long-term interest in Crystal Palace striker Jean-Philippe Mateta, while they are also monitoring Stade Rennes centre-back Jeremy Jacquet. James, do you expect them to be busy more so in the summer than Jan?
Yeah, it feels that way. It feels like Manchester United always look at the summer to do their recruitment. But what I would say with Manchester United, actually, if you look at where they are right now, they're sixth in the Premier League table, 3 points off of 4th place. It feels like there is a real opportunity this year for a club, or maybe a club, an outsider, to sneak into those Champions League places. I wouldn't be surprised if Manchester United are looking to do some business in this window, because they must be able to see that and visualise the opportunities that could await them. They weren't expected to get a Champions League place come the end of the season. That wouldn't have been on Amarin's list of achievements here. They would have said, we need improvements, let's get yourselves into Europe. But there's an opportunity here. But look, they do need let's be honest, they do need bodies in central midfield, left wing back in particular, needs strengthening. But Jason Wilcox, the sporting director, has always been quite clear. He wants plug in and play players. So basically, you're ready to go in the Premier League. You've seen it with Mbumu, with Cunha coming in as well. So if there is an opportunity, Mateta's an interesting one. Again, I don't see Crystal Palace letting him go. He's still got a contract for, I think, another year and a half. But you know, they certainly will test that, but I think that's more likely in the summer.
And Dan, look, it's Amorim's third window. And we often say in football, don't we, you need a couple of windows, and the third window seems to be when you're really putting your own stamp on things. So he will want to have a little dabble, won't he?
Yeah, I think a manager always wants to bring in new players, bring in better players. I still believe they need wing-backs to play his system, although there has been a huge change the last couple of weeks. So they might go for full-backs now, playing a back four. But yeah, I still believe they need wing-backs. I still believe they need a central midfield player, one that can get around the pitch, that big pitch at Old Trafford. And yeah, I think the central midfield player will be in the summer. I think they're looking at that one, and that's where they'll spend.
They were linked with like Carlos Baleba at Brighton in the summer. Brighton don't want to let him go, but
Anderson.
we know, again, we spoke about Bournemouth earlier and their recruitment. Brighton's the same. They're a selling club ultimately, and that might be a player. Elliot Anderson, I mean, he's had such a good season. There will be a whole list of suitors for him in the summer.
Head coach Ruben Amorim struck a calm but realistic tone in his pre-match press conference. Amorim confirmed that United's injury situation remains unchanged, with no major players expected to return in time for the trip to Elland Road. While this continues to limit his options, the manager insisted there are no excuses. The focus, he said, is purely on competing and winning, regardless of who is available. Acknowledging the intensity of the rivalry and the hostile atmosphere expected in Leeds, Amorim described Elland Road as a difficult place to play, but stressed that every Premier League match presents its own challenge. He praised Leeds for their pace and attacking variety, warning that United must stay disciplined and focused throughout the game. On the broader picture, Amorim admitted that while performances have shown improvement, the team has not collected enough points. However, he remains confident in the process. Questions about January transfers were brushed aside, with the coach making it clear that his attention is firmly on the pitch, not the market. It was a press conference that reflected realism, belief, and a clear demand for character on match day.